Well, I mean, I think in a way, I think how art is defined is a bit arbitrary. I don't think there is, in a final sense, a definition. I think institutions create definitions. However, I think there are a collection of things which you might characterise them as machines for making us feel things. And I think that's a definition that might include a lot of things that people wouldn't think of as art, but it does seem to frame the things that interest me most. So it would include pieces of music, it would include films and so forth. But insofar as painting is an art, my interest in it is that. It's about how it moves us, and particularly how... I mean, I know a lot of painters have abandoned this as part of their practice. It was once central, but it isn't anymore. Painting enables us to create a completely credible, fictional world. And it can move us and affect us by what's going on in that fictional world. And I think one of the reasons why painting continues to have a fascination, why it fascinates me, is because it's such a particular kind of fictional world. It has a very special kind of authenticity, unlike cinema, in that it's one individual's creation. In a sense, it's almost as though it's a transference of one person's mind to another, with very little mediation. It seems to me that I mean, in a way, perhaps that is a kind of crude definition of art, isn't it? It's about that transference of feeling from one person to another. But a picture, I suppose a window is a very good metaphor, isn't it? It's the neatest window through which you can look into another person's mind. Inspiration, I don't know. I'm not sure how useful a word that is in a way. I mean, I think I'm convinced actually that the desire to make things, the desire to create, is innate in everybody. I don't think it's a question of where you get your inspiration from. I think what intrigues me is why other people don't want to indulge that. I mean, I do some teaching, and you often find that people feel that they need permission to make things. They feel they've got to be fairly good to make it, or they feel there's some sort of mystique associated with the artist who's doing all this stuff. But it's just that you're doing it. It's not that you can, and it's not that there's not some sort of special essence. So I think I would come at it from the other end. It feels to me like it's just inside. There's a sort of geyser pumping away, and I think it's the human predicament, isn't it? I mean, if you think about what culture, what place in the world is so. Think of the most, think of places where people are most grounded to the ground. They still make music. The most impoverished people often make the most, historically make the most phenomenal, interesting things. It's just what's remarkable to me is that everybody doesn't want to make things and create things. So I think that's what I think. I think inspiration is slightly suspect concept. That's my process. That's a difficult thing to define, because every time every time I think I've figured out how to do it, it doesn't seem to work the next time. So let's try and. It's a kind of jumble. I suppose that I draw almost perpetually as a sort of, partly as a recreation. I just, I enjoy doing it. Some of it is being done from observation, but a great deal of it is just imaginative, without really any kind of framework at all. And I produce an enormous amount of this stuff, and I turn it over. And I suppose I'm looking for things that linger with me, things that still excite me. Sometimes that process takes years. I mean, not that I'm trying to imply that I'm struggling with something for many years, but I'm going through things that I made and looking for things that still have a hook in my face, And I think it's about taking those motifs or those elements that seem to have that particular quality of enigma and so forth that interests me, and then there's a sort of progressive development. Sometimes it involves making models, sometimes it involves collecting props, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, sometimes things just seem to fall off your brush, sadly not very frequently. So I'd almost say I don't want to be too definite in having a method. I'm of course very interested in the whole traditional craft of how pictures are made, and it's a thing that I try to study avidly. And I want to have an understanding. Of course, I'm very fascinated by even the way the material behaves and that kind of. So there's that part of my practice is just a sort of straightforward study. But in terms of how the things are developed, where the transition from idea into picture, the route varies. I think it's settling slightly more into a series of studies in which I invest progressively more. But even now, I'm halfway through some large canvas, and you think, oh, wait a minute, is this working? So I'm not sure I've got anything very useful to say about my I'm fumbling around. I think that's the truth of it.